So after this, Jesus was walking to Galilee, and he was unwilling to walk into Judea because the Jews wanted to kill him. But the Feast of Booths was coming near. And so in verse 3, it says that his brothers said to him, and brothers isn't to be taken literally here. Jesus, sometimes the Bible will talk about the brothers of Jesus, but we know based on other books of the Bible that brothers, it says that he had 100 brothers with him. So clearly the word brothers is not a literal word that Jesus had biological brothers. But at any rate, his brothers said to him, "Let's leave here, let's leave Galilee, and let's go to Judea, so that your disciples may see your works, which you're doing, so people can believe in you, Jesus. And for no one does anything in secret when he himself seeks to be known publicly." So they're trying to convince Jesus, hey, let's go back to Judea, and especially because the Feast of Booths is coming up. And Jesus says to them, though, that my time is not yet here, but your time is always opportune. The world can't hate you, but it hates me. And why does it hate me? It hates me because I testify against it. And again, there's that testimony language. Jesus is now the prosecuting attorney, and he's putting the world on trial, and the world doesn't want to be judged. So what does the world do in response? It retaliates against Jesus. It retaliates against God. It doesn't want to be judged, so it hates God instead. But before Jesus even got to Judea, which he ultimately ends up going, there was so much grumbling with the people about Jesus that they started to argue against themselves, where some of them said, he is a good man, but others say, no, he's leading the people astray. So the people had mixed feelings about him and began arguing back and forth. Some say, how has this man become so educated? How is he so learned? He's never been educated before. But others say, no, he has a demon inside him, and he's a good man. No, he leads the people astray. So they keep arguing against themselves. They say, is this not the man that they're seeking to kill? Look, he speaks publicly. Is he the Christ? No, he's not the Christ. And so they go back and forth arguing about Jesus. And actually, during Lent, you hear a lot more of this gospel about these arguments that will lead up to the crucifixion. What I love what happens next is Jesus' response, where it says in verse 14 that Jesus went up to the temple and he began to teach. So in verse 16 it says Jesus answered them. But then if you look, so then he begins teaching. But then it says in verse 28, Jesus cried out in the temple. So Jesus, in just a couple verses, in verse 16 where Jesus is answering, to verse 28, Jesus cried out in the temple, teaching and saying. So even Jesus begins to raise his voice, and the adrenaline begins to pump, and the argument begins to mount. And then the Pharisees take Jesus literally, yet another group of people who are taking Jesus too literally, because in verse 28, Jesus, when he cries out, he then says, you both know me and know where I am from, and I have not come of myself, but he who has sent me. And Jesus ultimately says, I go back to him who sent me, and you cannot come. So in verse 32, the Pharisees who take him literally say, where is he going that we can't follow him? Is he going to the dispersion among the Greeks? Is he going to go teach the Greek people? The dispersion was the area where Jews didn't generally live. It was the pagan people. And so they're saying, oh, Jesus is going somewhere where we can't follow. He must be going to the Greeks. But where is Jesus really talking? He's talking that he's going to be crucified and he's going to go back to heaven. But once again, there's a group of people. It was first Nicodemus, then the woman at the well, then the people listening to him talk about being the bread of life. And now the Pharisees that are saying, oh, we're taking Jesus literally. Where is he going? To the Greeks. But really, he's going to heaven. And I love verse 37, where we just met the woman at the well not too long ago. But Jesus says, now on the last day, the great day of the feast. This is of the Feast of Booths. We're on the last day of the feast. So several days have passed from the beginning of this chapter to verse 37. So in your mind, this is not all one conversation. This is over the course of several days. And now Jesus is appearing in the temple again. And again, he cries out. And this is like the climax of the water imagery, where Jesus says, if anyone is thirsty, let him come to me and drink. This is after Jesus talks to Nicodemus about being born again. This is after Jesus cures the man at Bethesda. This is after he meets the woman at the well who was quote unquote coming for water. Now Jesus is saying, if anyone is thirsty, let him come to me and drink. He who believes in me, as the scripture said, from that person will flow rivers of living water. What's great about this is that the people became divided. Some of them said, this is the Christ. And then they were saying, surely if the Christ is to come and it's not this man, will he perform greater signs than this one? Will the Christ, whoever he is, be able to do even more than Jesus if Jesus isn't the Christ? That's verse 31. Here we are, though, in verse 39. But this he who spoke of the Spirit, whom those who believed in him were to receive. For the Spirit was not yet given, because Jesus was not yet glorified. And then the people again, this is the Christ. Surely he is not going to come from Galilee, is he? The people are at the verge of believing in him. But they're saying, wait, hold on a second. We know him. He's the son of Joseph. Well, really, he's the adopted son of Joseph, right? Because he's really the son of God. And some of them say, but we know he's from Nazareth. The Christ can't come from Nazareth, from Galilee, can he? So they're divided amongst themselves. They want to believe, but they hold themselves back. And that's so true of us today. We hold ourselves back. We hold ourselves back at Mass, especially. We hear the music, we hear the songs, we hear the prayers, but we don't say the amens. We don't sing the songs. We don't sing the psalm. Words of love for God, and we're not singing them. We hold ourselves back. And in our own school masses, we become people divided over Jesus. Because of all this controversy, they actually sought to arrest Jesus. And so officers came to the chief priests and the Pharisees, and they said, why didn't you arrest Jesus? And the officers answer, never has a man spoken the way this man speaks. The officers that went to go arrest Jesus themselves were impressed with him. They run into the temple. They're about to arrest Jesus. They see him preaching as they're walking over to him to arrest him. They're listening to his words. And in the process of walking into the temple to Jesus, they're converted. No one of the rulers or Pharisees has believed in him, has he? The people are so astonished. They said, have you not also been led astray by this Jesus? The reason why you didn't arrest him? Has he also won you over? But then we have in verse 50, again, Nicodemus, who came to him before, the one who came at night, and says, our law does not judge a man unless it first hears him and knows what he is doing, does it? So what did the Jews say to Nicodemus? You're not also from Galilee too, are you? So the Pharisees want to arrest Jesus, but everyone they turn to seems to be on Jesus' side. No one can resist Jesus' words. He comes with living water. People want his message. They want the life of God. And so the Pharisees are astounded that neither their officers nor Nicodemus, one of their fellow Pharisees, wants to arrest Jesus. They say, has Jesus led you astray? Are you also from Galilee? Again, that jab from Galilee, that the Christ he couldn't possibly come from Galilee, could he? And to you, when you go to Mass, he couldn't possibly be coming from the altar, from the tabernacle, or could he?